Rise from the ashes, the post-World War II era. World War II ends, leaving countries in ruins. A new world order begins to emerge. By 1947, two superpowers rise, USA and USSR. Cold War tension engulfs the globe. The era witnesses unprecedented economic growth. Technology and science usher in a new age. Human rights become central. Decolonization reshapes the world map. A new world is born. 1991 sees USSR's fall. The post-World War II era concludes, leaving a lasting legacy. Capitalism versus communism, the US and Soviet Union showdown. In the wake of World War II, two superpowers emerged, the United States and the Soviet Union. Their different ideologies sparked a global confrontation. The US, champion of capitalism, promoted free market and private ownership. It was a system fueled by competition and individual ambition. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union, under the banner of communism, preached state ownership and equal distribution of wealth. It was an ideology rooted in collective effort. Courageous containment, the Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan. In 1947, Truman announced his doctrine, taking a firm stance against communist expansion. The doctrine promised military and economic aid to countries resisting communism. Shortly after, the Marshall Plan was devised to rebuild war-torn Europe. This plan was a strategic effort to prevent communism from taking hold in Europe. The Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan, two strategic moves that shaped the world. Reviving Europe, the impact of the Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan, a beacon of hope in post-war Europe, started in 1948. Designed to prevent communism's spread, it provided substantial economic aid across the continent. Helping rebuild industry and infrastructure, it fueled Europe's remarkable recovery and growth. Dividing a nation, the split of Germany and Berlin. In the aftermath of World War II, Germany found itself split into two parts. The Federal Republic of Germany represented the West, with Bonn as the provisional capital. East Germany, known as the German Democratic Republic, had East Berlin as its center. The Berlin Wall, built in 1961, became the physical symbol of this division. Eventually, political changes led to the fall of the wall in 1989, reuniting Germany. Unveiling Berlin, a city divided. In the aftermath of World War II, Berlin was partitioned. Four major powers controlled the city. The East was under Soviet Union, rest by the Allies. A palpable tension loomed over. The Berlin Wall was erected, physically and symbolically dividing the city and its people. Arms race and space race. Two superpowers ignite an era of tension, fueled by the threat of nuclear weapons. Their rivalry spills into the cosmos. Launching Sputnik in 1957, Soviets signaled the start of the space race. Their move increases global anxiety and anticipation. The arms race parallels this cosmic competition, with both superpowers stockpiling nuclear weapons. The world watches in suspense, fearing a possible cataclysm. Space exploration emerges as a peaceful channel for this competitive spirit. The race to the moon becomes an emblem of hope. The Apollo missions by the US mark a turning point, recasting the space race as a quest for knowledge, not dominance. Today, the legacy of these races resonates. Technological advancement, international relations, and global security are shaped by this intense Cold War rivalry. As we look to the stars, let's remember our past and use it to guide a future of cooperation, not competition. Proxy wars, the silent battlegrounds of superpowers. In international politics, proxy wars reign as an unseen, silent battleground. Superpowers avoid direct confrontation, instead, channeling their conflicts through third parties. These indirect conflicts can influence the global balance of power significantly. unsuspecting nations become the chessboard for power play between larger entities. Historical instances like the Cold War, where the USA and USSR funded opposing sides, mark the severity of proxy wars. Today, similar patterns emerge, shaping world politics subtly yet firmly. In conclusion, understanding proxy wars is crucial for deciphering the complexities of international relations. Decoding the impact of major Cold War events. The Cold War era, a time of political tension and unprecedented military expansion. Unpacking the intricacies of the Vietnam War and the Korean War's dramatic narratives. Cuban Missile Crisis 1962, a gripping face-off that brought the world to a standstill. Explore how these seminal events transformed the global political landscape forever. Inside the Cuban Missile Crisis, a brush with nuclear war. It was 1962, the Cold War was at its peak, and the world faced its darkest hour. The Soviet Union had clandestinely installed nuclear missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles off the American coast. Across the ocean, American intelligence uncovered the threat. The stakes had suddenly skyrocketed. The world was on the brink of nuclear war, the threat was real and immediate. Fear gripped every heart. President John F. Kennedy had a difficult decision to make. Diplomacy or military action? The balance was delicate, the consequences unimaginable. The world watched and waited. Behind closed doors, negotiations began. The United States demanded the removal of the missiles. The Soviet Union, under pressure, considered its options. Tension was high as the clock ticked down. On October 28, an agreement was reached. The Soviet Union would remove the missiles from Cuba. In exchange, the United States committed not to invade Cuba. The relief was palpable, the crisis averted. The Cuban Missile Crisis remains a stark reminder of how close the world came to nuclear war. History remembers the courage, the diplomacy, and the lessons learned. Decoding the end of the Cold War, a tale of power shifts. The 1970s brought a détente, a breather in the Cold War, easing tensions between superpowers. This period, however, was not destined to last. As the 80s approached, change was in the air. Enter Mikhail Gorbachev. This Soviet leader's reign marked the beginning of drastic transformations within the Soviet Union. Gorbachev's policies of openness and restructuring challenged the status quo, leading to a ripple effect across the globe. The Iron Curtain began to crumble. Eastern Europe witnessed unprecedented revolutions, pushing for democracy and freedom. With the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, the Cold War met its symbolic end. In the end, the Cold War wasn't won with weapons, but with words, sparking a power shift that changed the world. Fall of the Berlin Wall and Soviet disintegration, a remarkable twist of history. The Berlin Wall, a symbol of division, fell in 1989. This event marked the end of a divided Germany. East and West Germany were finally united after decades of separation. The world witnessed this historic event in awe and disbelief. Meanwhile, in the Soviet Union, internal tensions were building up. These pressures resulted in the ultimate collapse of the Soviet Empire. In 1991, the Soviet Union formally dissolved. 15 new countries emerged from its ashes, transforming the geopolitical landscape. The end of the Cold War was a significant global event. Its impacts reverberated across the world, ending decades of tension and rivalry. The fall of the Berlin Wall and the disintegration of the Soviet Union changed the course of history. These events continue to influence the world today. And so ends this video. Please comment if you liked it and what topics you would like to see in a future video. See you next time, here, in HistoryLive.